Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. This is the Iran War Today, bringing you up to date with all you need to know on the US-Israel war with Iran. Let's start with today's key developments. Qatar's Prime Minister has visited Tehran in a bid to revive the diplomacy as the US and Iran continue to trade insults over Washington's latest raft of sanctions, described by one Iranian official as all-out economic war. The shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has increased slightly, according to the latest data, as oil prices continue to fall. On the eve of the 6-month anniversary of this war, there are currently no negotiations happening between the United States and Iran, but all options remain on the table, according to the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who has spoken to Fox News. An air defence system operated by Greek military personnel in Saudi Arabia has intercepted a swarm of drones in the wider Yanbu region, home to major oil refining facilities. Greek security sources have been telling Reuters about that intervention. It was the third time the Greek-operated system has been used in combat since the Iran war began. And a Norwegian-based human rights group says Iran has executed more than 500 people so far this year, with a surge in hangings in recent days. We'll discuss what life has become for Iranians. So let's start then with Qatar's visit to Tehran. The Prime Minister there for talks on the strategic Strait of Hormuz as a US naval blockade squeezes oil supplies to Iran. The visit by Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani follows a week of intense diplomacy in Iran involving separate meetings with Oman's top diplomat and senior Pakistani officials as they seek to find ways to end the Middle East war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It also comes as Washington threatens wider secondary sanctions against countries, banks and companies that continue doing business with Iran, part of their broader campaign they have called economic asphyxiation. All this while shipping continues trying carefully to navigate the Strait of Hormuz, as our business correspondent Ben Thompson explains.
As the standoff between the United States and Iran continues, and Iran maintaining dialogue with Oman and others over navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices have continued to fall. And the latest data shows that shipping through the strait has risen slightly. 10 vessels transited the waterway on Wednesday. That's up from 8 on Tuesday. That's all according to the data firm Kepler, the ship tracking company. 2 medium-range fuel tankers, a liquefied petroleum gas carrier, a Panamax-sized tanker and 3 mid-sized tankers all entered the strait from the Gulf of Oman. Well, those ships have got through, but against a backdrop of real concern for shipping. The UK Maritime Trade Operation Agency reports that a tanker was hit by an unknown projectile in the strait, causing a fire, and that was later extinguished. But other key waterway, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, remains a key concern, with Kepler data showing that traffic there slowed for a second day. Of course, some vessels may be sailing through these key waterways with their transponders turned off and therefore not being counted. But with the ongoing concerns, the global impact remains. Persistently higher fuel and energy costs are pushing up prices, not only at the pump, but across the whole range of industries, from agriculture and manufacturing to retail and hospitality. And with colder weather now approaching in the Northern Hemisphere, the impact of those higher prices is set to bite even more.
Well, the United States and Iran are not currently in talks to end the war. That point reiterated by the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in an interview with Fox News. Ms. Leavitt told Fox that all options do remain on the table. But we are on the eve of the 6-month anniversary of the start of the Iran war, and we've already heard that the fuel and energy consequences of the war are being felt globally. Let's hear now then the views of ordinary citizens across America for their thoughts on the war.
Number one, I wish it was going to be over a little bit quicker before the midterms, only because I think that's just a tool for the Democrats to hurt Trump. The other thing is I'm glad that Trump did go in and ensure that they don't have a nuclear weapon. Diesel is way too high, which means our food prices are high.
Every day I fill up on gas. I fill up a big, massive pickup truck, and then I have a lot of small lawn equipment. And it takes around $200 to fill that up. Now, this is my 4th year doing this, And before then, I was spending around 75 just to fill everything up.
Clearly it's not working. It's costing all the people of the United States lots of money. It's not getting any results that are good for our country. And clearly it's basically just an ego trip, but you know, we're pretty used to that now. New York has only gotten ridiculously more expensive the last 4 or 5 years, and it doesn't help to have a giant budget draining thing going on just for basically someone's vanity project that costs all of us money all the time.
That's my son, Jared.
As a dad, I want my son home. I want his brothers and sisters in arms home. I want them not to have the ill effects that war has historically brought, if you will. As a citizen, I hope we can resolve this very, very quickly.
Thoughts of some ordinary Americans there. Tom Bateman is our State Department correspondent in Washington. So we've been hearing there's a slight uptick in the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, but that's not helping Americans with the cost of living, Tom. Where does that leave President Trump and Republicans politically in the run-up to the midterms?
Well, it leaves him with the real headache. And remember that, you know, this was the first war in modern American history that didn't have majority support of Americans, at least at the very beginning. Mr. Trump launched this war against the Iranians. The polling at the time was putting support, you know, around the sort of high 30s, 40% mark. That has slipped considerably since then, support for the war, as we've continued with this on-off nature of attacks, a truce and ceasefire that's collapsed, the crisis over the Strait of Hormuz and global energy supplies, which is all fed through, as you heard so clearly there, to the cost of petrol, the cost of gasoline in America, more than $1 higher than it was before the war. And so we're now seeing in the latest Reuters Ipsos polling that was carried out at the end of last week, the levels of support for the war are now down at just 31% of Americans. And very importantly, support is slipping among Republicans. So you now have a figure of around 69%, according to this poll, that support the war. That's down from 77% at the beginning of the war. That is a problem for Mr. Trump, because those more moderate Republicans, independent voters, the more they attach this issue of Mr. Trump's foreign policy to his overall approval ratings, which are at also at a low, in the low 30%, the lowest he's had, according to this poll, in both terms. He has a real problem then going into these midterm elections.
Tom Bateman in Washington, thank you for that. A Norwegian-based human rights group says Iran has executed more than 500 people so far this year, with a surge in hangings in recent days. Iran Human Rights says almost 30 were connected to January's anti-government protests. Earlier this month, Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei reshuffled Tehran's top security team. A particularly noteworthy appointment was bringing back Hossein Tayyib, who was a key architect of previous crackdowns, instrumental in leading the Basij, a paramilitary force affiliated with the Revolutionary Guards, and a group which has repeatedly been deployed by Iran's clerical rulers to suppress the protests. With me in the studio is BBC Persian's Paham Gabadi. Tell me about Hossein Tayyib. Who is he?
Hossein Tayyib is a close and long-standing ally of Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. They've worked together for many years. And he has previously, this is not the first time he's becoming the commander of Basij. He was the commander of Basij in 2009, when the Green Movement took place. That was the protest that erupted after the contested presidential elections in Iran.
So he's been returned because
he's been returned,
reputation.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so he was in charge, and he was actually put on the U.S. sanction list back in 2019. And according to U.S. Treasury back then, because of his forces under Tayyib's command participated in beating, murder, and arbitrary arrest and detention of peaceful protesters. Right after that, the intelligence wing of Revolutionary Guard was born, and he led that force for 13 years. But the reason, and during his tenure, he built a fearsome reputation for arrest and alleged torture of dissidents, political activists, and especially dual nationals.
But I mean, President Trump in recent months has told the Iranians to rise up. But the appointment of Hossein Tayyib, who was, as you say, an architect of previous crackdowns, tells me that, in fact, the Basij are as strong and as ever present as they ever were.
They are, because the Basij is a kind of force it's a paramilitary force that exists in every neighborhood, in every mosque. So it's spread out throughout the region. But his reputation is not, it was harshly criticized when it comes to Israel, because during his tenure, the Iranian nuclear archive was stolen by Israelis in 2018, and the quote-unquote Iran's nuclear godfather, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was assassinated in 2008.
So as we approach the six-month anniversary then, this is less about regime change. The regime seems to be very much in charge in Tehran, and more about the economic impact. So we've got the Qatari Prime Minister in Tehran today. With what purpose? What is he trying to secure?
So right now, as you mentioned, it's not about regimes. Not only that, it's not, you don't hear Iran's nuclear program that much either anymore. It's about mainly the Strait of Hormuz, to open it. And Iranians want to keep that leverage. One of the results of this war after 6 months is that Iranians found new leverage, which is the Strait of Hormuz, and they appear to be using it
which has a domestic impact in America, as we've just been hearing.
Yeah, but for Iranians also, yes, this is a new leverage, so Iranians might claim victory over that. However, this is coming at a very high economic cost that ordinary Iranians are bearing the brunt of it. For example, we've got power cuts across the country right now, and huge inflation, and also Iranian currency in the past few days hit the record low. On top of that, in the past few days, we've got long queues for fuel. So, but ordinary Iranians are bearing.
So the pressure might start to build on the regime from within again.
Exactly.
If Caroline Levitt is saying that there are no talks on the anniversary, the 6-month anniversary, then on what pretense is the Qatari Prime Minister there? Who's he speaking for? Who are the Pakistanis speaking for if the Americans aren't taking part?
The shuttle diplomacy has been taking place in the past few days. Pakistanis went to Iran, Omanis went to Iran, Qataris went to Iran. However, we see conflicting reports. Iranians are saying we are kind of reaching a deal with Omanis to the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. However, today, Qataris said that that is not acceptable to us, because they should, the conditions of the Strait of Hormuz should go to the pre-war condition, and that's an Iranian red line. Iranians are saying that is not going to take place. But after 6 months, one more thing that is also important is that one of the results of this war was that we are seeing an Iranian regime that is way more emboldened. I can give you an example. In the past, if an Iranian nuclear scientist was assassinated in Tehran, Iran would not retaliate or strike Israel. However, right now, if something like that happens, we can, with high probability, Iran is going to send a barrage of ballistic missiles towards Israel, and that's a huge difference.
And yet, for 6 months, we have not seen the Supreme Leader.
We have not seen the Supreme Leader. We have not heard about him. There is no audio. There is no video of him. But what matters is that the establishment is in place, and the Revolutionary Guard is as strong as it was, even way stronger than it was before the war. Because as you mentioned, Tayyib is back, but it's not only him. We see Mohsen Rezai as the secretary and as the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, which is the body that makes important security and international relations decisions. So by putting these people in position, it shows that Iran is taking a more hardline position.
Paham Gabadi, very good context. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, whether you are joining us on YouTube, TikTok, Sounds, Radio or TV, thank you for your time. We will be back soon with another Iran War Today.